Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Wales for the first time in quite a while actually. It's been about 2.5, maybe even closer to 3 years since I last reviewed a Welsh beer for you on the channel, and the main reason for that is just that we don't come across all that many of them here in Sweden. Other than some of the Celt Brewery folk ale beers, the ones that are 3.5% and below, we really just don't get very much from Wales at all. I haven't even seen Tiny Rebel coming through Systembolaget in quite a while, although in fairness, this brewery that we're going to have a look at today, I have seen one or two of their beers making it onto Glassbanken, and I've also seen them available at Kiosk over in Copenhagen as well. So fingers crossed, this is the start of the Welsh beers trying, getting out there a little bit more actually, because I know there's some very, very good breweries there, but it's a shame they just don't get very much exposure over here on the continent actually. But fingers crossed, as I say, that is the that is going to change over the next while. But for this review then, we are going to return to a brewery that have featured on the channel before, but way back in 2017, and they went by a different name at that point as well actually, and I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. So for this review we are going to go to a little place called Mold in Flintshire in the northeast of the country, and we're having a look at another beer from Polly's Brew Company, although when I first encountered them they went by the name Loka Polly. But this particular beer is called Movies in the Jacuzzi. It comes in at 6.4% ABV, and it is a New England hazy style IPA, however you want to call it, with some guava added to the brew. So it should be a really, really interesting one. The last beer that I had from these guys was the Simcoe Stout. And that was one that I picked just because I thought it would be really interesting. It's not all that often you come across a stout with Simcoe hops in it, although the Simcoe hop is very popular for use in black IPAs because it can give you some really nice red fruity characters. I think I picked that one at the time because it was different from the other ones that Polly's had, Loka Polly had been releasing. But this is going to be my very first New England or very first IPA of any kind from these guys, but this is the style where they've really made their name actually, and they're probably one of the better known Welsh craft breweries at this point in time. So very curious to see how this one turns out. Massive shout out and thank you once again in this review to Adam over at Mersey Beers. He sent me this beer along with a bunch of English ones quite recently, and some of these beers that he sent me have been very, very good so far. So fingers crossed this one follows on in the same vein as those. But do make sure you check out the link to Adam's channel in the video description below. He's just kind of getting it off the ground, having had his internet upgraded. His main theme is going to be beer themed live streams, and he's got some really nice ideas for that going forward. So I look forward to seeing how that kind of progresses, and I hope that I can participate in it as well. But he's a lovely guy, very knowledgeable about his beer, so do please make sure that you go and show him some love and give him a subscribe. That would be awesome if you guys can do that. He's been very nice to give me all of these beers to review for you here on the channel. I do hope that you guys have been enjoying the English mini-series and you enjoy this Welsh beer review as well. So let's see how we get on with this one then. Very curious to see what it has in store. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Polly's Brew Company before, and hopefully we can add more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Welsh beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. There is only about 10 videos in that just now, but hopefully we can add more to that over the next little while, like I say. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Polly's Brew Company then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you already, Polly's are based in Mold in the northeast of Wales in Flintshire, and the company is run by three friends. This is Aaron Fellows, Sean Weldon and Scott Nixon, and the company was founded back in early 2018, originally with the name Loka Polly. So Sean had a brewery prior to this, and it was called Black Brook Brewing, and this ran for around 18 months, and it was successful, but he realised that he couldn't brew the beers he wanted for cask conditioning. It was just too much of a limiting factor for him, so he decided that he was going to dissolve Black Brook completely and rebrand, and that's just what he did. So the idea for the name Loka Poly came in two parts. Loka came from his brother James's graphic design project, which was called Loka Island, and Polly comes from their horse who used to live in the barn where the brewery is located. So Aaron had actually been running a restaurant and a bar, and he'd become known as the beer guy, and he used to buy Sean's beer when he was making the Black Brook stuff, and also, you know, the very early Loka Poly beers, but this was when he worked in the local wine and tapas bar in the area, and he was approached later by Sean to come in as the head of sales, and so he deals with a lot of the business side of the brewery while Sean is concentrating on the brewing. But Scott joined the brewery a little bit later in August of 2018, having been a long-term friend of the guys, and he's also involved in the brewing. They basically took him on having had no experience of the brewing industry, if you like, but they knew he would soak up everything they taught him like a sponge, as they say, and that's just kind of what's happened. But in early 2019, these guys received a cease and desist order from Loka, which is a Swedish soft drinks company. You know, you get all the fruity waters and stuff for them. You see them all over the place in the 7-Elevens and Pressbyråns and things like that over here in Sweden, the convenience stores. But these guys are actually part of Spendrup's Brewery, who are one of the biggest drinks producers in Sweden, and they said that the Loka Poly branding was a bit too similar to their own branding, if you like, so they had to change the name, and they went for Polly's Brewing Company with this. But apparently it was quite it was quite amicable. The Swedish company were quite good with them about that, but they didn't want to, they said that they didn't want to kind of go down the legal route and spend a lot of money doing that, because, you know, obviously a lot of time and resources for quite a small company. But at the moment these guys are focusing mainly on brewing IPAs and pale ales and stuff like that, but they do hope to add more styles over the next little while. They have done the odd stout and a couple of sours and things like that from what I understand, but yeah, they do want to expand even more beyond that. But as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 250 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I say, they're probably one of the best known and most respected Welsh craft breweries these days. So yeah, up in Scotland, when I'm back home, it's probably these guys and Tiny Rebel that I'm most likely to find. Pardon me, from Wales actually. So yeah, probably definitely fair to say that these guys are one of the best known Welsh breweries actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Polly's Brew Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. I'm really curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So this kind of teardrop or water drop thing from Polly's, that is their symbol, and they've been using this even under the days of the name Loka Poly. But you can see the artwork on this one is quite kind of jazzy, quite nice and flowery actually, very, very modern, almost hippie-like, but yeah, nicely presented. There you can see Polly's Brew Company on the back, and they do have a little bit of a fact sheet about the beer here. But it says here, fresh, modern and vibrant beers produced with a passion from Polly's old farm in our hometown of Mold, North Wales, established back in 2018. And apparently this beer is vegan friendly, but it tells you on the side here, movies in the Jacuzzi, IPA coming in at 6.4% ABV, Guava added to the brew, malt base of extra pale, dextrin, oats and wheat, and then the hops used in this are Amarillo and Chinook. So Amarillo, we know what, lovely big oily orange hop, and Chinook is that big kind of piney resinous beast with a bit of grapefruit in it. So yeah, this one I think should be a very, very interesting review. 440ml can, this one. I'm not sure actually why Adam picked this one specifically for me, or if it's just one that he liked. But yeah, definitely nice to return to these guys after quite some time. So let's get the beer out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for us. So let's get it out and into the glass. That does look very nice. You can see, oh, carbonation's quite crazy in this one, I have to say. Looks good. Yeah. Got quite a bit of carbonation sticking to the glass, but I think, oh no, sorry, it's actually bits of fruit floating around in this one. So yeah, that must be bits and bobs of the guava actually that's floating around. I thought that was carbonation sticking to the side of the glass, but no, apparently not. So yeah, that's your little bits of guava, little bits of sediment and things like that. So yeah, this one I think should be kind of an interesting beer. But as you can see with this, and as you sometimes expect from these New England hazy type beers, this one's poured a lovely kind of pale It's poured a lovely kind of pale yellow colour, this one. I would compare this to a sort of pineapple juice, to be honest with you. I always compare the New England IPAs to fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of. That's my kind of frame of reference with them. But yeah, this one I think does look pretty damn interesting, but definitely one of the paler New England IPAs that I've come across in recent times. You can see that when we poured the beer, it poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy white head, but that's faded away very quickly to just be a thin foamy layer, and it's kind of just like a thin foamy white ring around the edge of the glass actually. But it does look pretty nice, I have to say. I like how this one goes together. I wasn't expecting quite as much sediment in this one, but that can happen when you add fruits into the beers. It will just be little particles of the fruit in suspension there. But yeah, as you can see, if I put my fingers behind the glass, pretty damn hazy, but you know, that's kind of what you've come to expect from these New England IPAs, and it looks, you know, for a 6.4%, the level of haze on this one is pretty impressive, but I would surmise that that is down to the fruit that's been added into this one. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this one in terms of its appearance, but let's have a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. I'm really curious about this beer. Yeah, you can smell the guava out of this straight away. Guava's a really interesting fruit actually. I love the smell of guava. Yeah, it's almost just like a slightly more kind of green, and slightly, I always find it maybe a bit more green and a little bit more almost coconutty than mango. Sorry, that's how I always kind of interpret guava. But it's a lovely, lovely fruit, and you get that out of the nose straight away in this one. That's kind of what you'd expect when they've added quite a lot of it into the brew here. But yeah, very tropically leaning New England IPA. I'd definitely say that about it. But the malt base comes across really interestingly in this one. You can definitely pick out a kind of big white bready character to it. There is a little bit of a bitey or wheat in there, but I think the dextrin, is it dextrin or dextrose that's in this? What did they say? It's dextrin, yeah. The dextrin that's in this one is really quite apparent as well. You can really get that kind of smoothness out of it. It's got a little bit of that really kind of milky, almost milkshakey type base to it, which is quite interesting. The oats will be contributing to that as well, but yeah, you get a good little bit of a crisp bready character to it, a bit of a bitey wheat, and quite a smooth oaty character there. So it comes across as very, very smooth, and it comes across as very, very smooth in its malt base. And the guava, as I say, the guava is quite a juicy and almost quite pungent fruit, but the kind of malt base that this one has just complements it really nicely. To be honest with you, this beer, in a lot of ways, it strikes me as being very kind of straight shooting, if you like. It's not the most complex of aromas that you're going to get, but it's just very, very nice, to be honest with you. I think that's probably a fair kind of assessment of it. On the green side of the hops, you do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. You can get some of that nice big kind of resinous quality from the Chinook, although I would say this beer comes across as more floral and aromatic in terms of the fruity side of things, in terms of the green side of things, right enough. But there's also a good little bit of a grassiness to this beer, but the grassiness comes across as quite wet. And the thing is, whenever you add fruit into a beer, it's always going to suppress a little bit of the IBU of the beer, the fruits. You know, take away a little bit of the bitterness, but they always add a little bit of another dimension to the beer. So yeah, green side of the beer for me is quite floral, little bit of grassiness hiding underneath, and just a little touch of earthiness in there as well. But a really nice smelling beer, this one, I have to say. I'm really curious to see what this has in store. But yeah, the aroma, this one for me, the guavas dominate, as you would kind of expect. You do get, I don't get so much more in terms of fruity notes in it. If you have to take it in like really quite deeply to get a little bit more of the orangey character out of it, but the guava completely dominates, and you're not getting so much in the way of grapefruit either, which is kind of what you would expect from Chinook. So yeah, that's another interesting point to make about this one. So yeah, that is another, as I say, that is another kind of point about this. But yeah, it comes across as quite a it comes across quite smooth, but also, you know, very tropically, and yeah, it just comes across like a very, very nice beer, to be quite honest with you. I think that's a good way to sort of to summarise this one. So yeah, you know, the aroma gets a thumbs up from me. Quite quirky compared to some of the other New England IPAs that I've come across recently, but yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy that aroma. If you're a fan of Guava, I think you are going to really like the aroma of this one. But yeah, let's have a taste of this now and see how we get on. So this one is called the Movies in Jacuzzi, or Movies in the Jacuzzi, sorry. 6.4% New England Hazy IPA, whatever you want to call it, from Polly's Brew Company, with a bit of guava added to the brew. So once again, thank you to Adam for this beer. Let's get stuck in and see how we get on. Slàinte, skål. That's very, very drinkable. Really stupidly drinkable beer, that. Yeah, that is very, very nice, I have to say. I can see why Adam would like this one, to be honest. It's a lovely, drinkable, but lovely and bright and tropically New England IPA. But you can see, oh, there was quite a bit of sediment sitting there at the bottom of this one. You can see even more of the fruit coming out of this now. I did wonder about that actually, so let's have another wee sip of that and see how we go. Yeah, this one, yeah, it does thicken up just a little bit there, but I will say straight away, this one is really nice, and it still maintains that that drinkability actually. So yeah, thumbs up to Polly's Brew Company for this. It's come across really nice. I wonder if my fridge was just a little bit too cold for this one actually. I usually keep it around 6 degrees just so that, you know, prepping the video and stuff, the beer warms up to, you know, the standard 8 or so degrees that you want from them in the time that we do the history section of the video. But yeah, this one, I think maybe the fridge has just been a little bit too cold for this, because there is quite a bit of sediment has obviously come out of this one. But yeah, in terms of flavour and stuff, the beer comes across very, very nicely. So let's try and break that down for you. So yeah, this beer, straight away you're going to notice that the mouthfeel is really nice and just kind of wet and smooth almost, if you like. It's got a lovely drinkability to it, this beer. And I mean, Wales, very kind of hilly, mountainous country, you're going to get very pure water from there, and that's one of the things that you pick up in this beer straight away, and that gives it a very, very clean mouthfeel in my mind, but we'll come back to that a little bit later on. So, straight away with this one then, you can feel that nice kind of white bready quality, that blankets the middle of your tongue. There is a little bit of a wheaty note in the back third of the palate. You can feel the sort of breadiness of the beer just thicken up a little bit. And you do get a nice little touch of wheaty bitiness out of it, and that kind of sits there, but the dextrose, I think, in this one is smoothing that out a bit. The wheaty notes come across really, really as being really, really nice and smooth on that back third of your palate. But as you move further forward, you can feel the breadiness just kind of thins out a little bit as you reach the kind of middle part of your palate, and then on top of that you've got the nice kind of smooth oaty sort of things coming out of the beer. So the malt base for me is really quite a smooth and straightforward kind of white bready, wheaty and oaty sort of thing actually. So I do like how that goes together in this one. The malt base kind of suits the rest of the beer itself. So yeah, that's the kind of thing. It feels to me as if it's one of these, you know, well crafted beers. I would guess that this probably is not the most adventurous of the beers that Polly's Brew Company have done, and not the craziest of beers either, but is it nice and is it drinkable? Yeah, for me it is. So yeah, I like this one, and it does get a thumbs up from me. So let's check out the hoppy and fruity side of the beer then. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it is kind of what you'd expect. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the side of the palate, it gets a little touch more herbal, and you do get some nice big floral aromatic notes out of it as you move further forward. So a nice little bit of floral aromaticity to it. As you go round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is just a little bit lighter and more grassy in my mind. But the thing is, I say, when you add fruit into the beer, it suppresses a little bit of the IBU. The fruit always comes out on the very edge of the palate, and you can get the guava there straight away with this one. Like I say, to me guava always tastes a little bit like a slightly more green type, just a kind of more green mango, to be honest with you. That's what I really get out of this beer rather than anything else. But yeah, the flavour of it comes across really nicely. On that front third of your palate, as I always say, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. And for me, the fruity side of this beer in that sense is actually quite... it's actually really quite reserved, to be honest with you. I don't get too much from that at all. So let's try and focus on it and see what we can get. So, yeah, I mean, the guava, the sort of wetter fruits from the guava, the big juicy notes from the guava, are really dominating the fruity side of this beer. But if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you will get a wee touch of grapefruit there, but very, very quickly it turns to be more kind of orangey. The guava kind of pushes its way back there as well. But if you go towards the front half of that front third of your tongue, you will get a little touch of, you will get a little touch of how would we say, a little bit of a kind of oily orangey note out of this one, which is quite nice. But yeah, it's the fruity side of this beer. It really is just more guava rather than anything else. You don't get the oranges from the Amarillo. You don't get any of the grapefruit from the Chinook so much for me. The orangey notes are very, very subtle in this beer, which is it is kind of interesting. But if you just consider it as a guava IPA, then yeah, it does suit it. If I was tasting this beer though, I would probably think it was a pale ale or something, because of how, kind of straight up the malt base is. The malt base, like I said, is very, very smooth actually. So yeah, just just kind of watch with that one. This is quite a smooth, easy drinking beer, like I said. So yeah, just mull this one over a little bit. It is really quite nicely done in my mind. So yeah, I can see why Adam would like this one. The guava sort of fits in with everything else that the beer has, and I think the smooth malt base that it has as well works really well. But yeah, quite a low bitterness New England IPA, this one as well. So let's focus on that mouthfeel now. I think we've covered the flavour profile of this one all that we need to, as much as we need to. So yeah, in terms of mouthfeel then, what would we say about this? So yeah, in terms of mouthfeel, this one would be, I would say that this one, it's kind of bottom end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth in this. It does have a degree of creaminess to it and a little bit of smoothness, but overall I would say, it is fairly kind of, straight up, to be honest with you. I would kind of say that about it, fairly kind of smooth and straight up. No sweetness to the malt base in this one for me. It is just, very smooth and bready, like I've said. In terms of IBUs, I think you'd be lucky to get about 20, or maybe not even 15 IBUs out of this beer. There's very, very little bitterness to this one at all, to be honest. But yeah, there's a lot of juicy fruitiness, and it mainly comes from the guava, which you get around the front edge of the tongue there, because that's kind of what happens when you add fruit into beers. But yeah, this one is a pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting beer, I have to say. So I like how this goes together. So it gets a thumbs up from me, and it certainly does make me quite curious to try some of the other Polly's Brewing Company beers. So yeah, I think we should leave it at that for this one. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Polly's Brew Company as well. Hopefully we can review a few more beers from these guys at some point in the near future. But this one was a really nice one to review for you here on the channel. And once again, thank you to Adam from Mersey Beer for making this review possible. Really cool to be able to review this for you after having a 2.5 year, maybe even 3 year gap from Welsh beer and from Polly's Brew Company. So yeah, go and check these guys out if you get the chance. Along with Tiny Rebel, these guys are probably the best known Welsh craft brewery these days. So yeah, let's leave it there. Thanks again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This one was the Movies in the Jacuzzi, 6.4% New England Hazy IPA with guava added to the brew from Polly's Brew Company in Mold in Flintshire in the northeast of Wales. Slàinte, Skål, Yaki Da. Cheers.